This is Voices in Validation, brought to you by IVT Network. IVT Network is your expert source for life science regulatory knowledge. Voices in Validation brings you the best in validation and compliance topics. We interview industry experts from pharma, biotech, med devices, and laboratories. Here is the host of Voices in Validation, Stacey.
Hello to you all. Thank you for joining us. My name is Stacey Brzezzi, and I'm the portfolio lead for the quality and validation team, as well as the managing editor and podcast host for the IVT Network. These 2020 awards are truly about those people who make my job easier, the authors, presenters, and guests who keep our audience informed and forward-thinking. I am truly honored to be a part of this year's award ceremony. Each of the recipients represents truly the best and the brightest of the industry and should serve as a daily reminder of the dedication and fortitude it takes to consistently impact positive outcomes for patients. So without further ado, I'm humbled to introduce the recipients of this year's IVT Awards. So for 2021, we do have awards in several categories, and just to give you a quick overview, so you can follow along, we are presenting Author of the Year for Journal of Validation Technology, the Author of the Year for our Journal of GXP Compliance, as well as Speaker of the Year awards for Computer Systems Validation and Software Assurance Week, Validation Week, and Compounding Pharmacy Compliance. In addition, we have an award being presented for Voices in Validation Podcast of the Year, and of course, our very special Chapman Award. Here to tell you a little bit more about the awards and how the session goes is Paul Pluta.
Thank you, Stacey. Okay, so our first award that we're presenting today is the Author of the Year for the Journal of Validation Technology. We have a slide with all the nominees, and you'll see what I want you to see on this is the diverse content. And we've covered so many different subjects. It's really good, and I think the value of the journal is the diversity of content. Now, if you go down the list, our winning author or author team is Sanjay Sharma, Amol Dalande, AJ Babu Panzayatal, I'm sorry, AJ, and Jordan Collins. And their paper is having to do with the life cycle approach, stage 3 testing on an oral suspension product. Now, next up is a conversation of AJ and Stacey.
All right, first up, we have the Author of the Year Award for the Journal of Validation Technology. And this award goes to the team for the article Life Cycle for Legacy Powder for Oral Suspension, Stage 3 Validation Monitoring. And congratulations to the winning team of Sanjay, Amal, AJ, and Jordan. We are lucky enough to have AJ with us here today to receive the award and to give us a little bit of background on where the article came from. So welcome, AJ, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Stacey. Thanks for the award. And on behalf of the whole team that was behind this article, we're extremely excited and honored to receive the award from IVT. And we actually, appreciate the support and actual honor from the IVT Network as a whole, and as well as the pharmaceutical community as a whole. Thank you. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're proud to have authors like you be part of our network. So this was a really popular topic with our readers and with our voters. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose to author this paper now and what you had hoped the readers would take away from it?
Yeah, in this particular article, what we try to apply is both pharmaceutical manufacturing science and data science principles put together. So we thought that the method we applied for the legacy product enhancement was quite unique. And there is a utility that we thought, for manufacturing organizations who are either looking at trying to discontinue the legacy products or having a hard look at their legacy product portfolio because of the manufacturing issues that are going through. So we thought there's a value right there. And on top of that, we wanted to really convey a message that stage 3 process validation has a huge potential. So this article, you could look at how we have tried to heighten the process data collection and how we have tried to use those data collected throughout the collection process stage 3, and how we utilize it for continuous improvement or recommending for a remediation plan. So it's a more data-driven approach and a much better proposition, I would say, than jumping in blindly and going into improving your legacy product or remediating your legacy processes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was great to get some of this information to really get that discussion going, because we are going to see so many legacy products being faced with decisions coming up, which leads me to another question for you, AJ. What can we expect from your perspective in the future of legacy drugs?
I absolutely foresee that all the patient-critical legacy products or processes getting transformed to apply the QBD methodologies, and that would meet the current expectations. And another aspect, lately that we're seeing is new technologies like the continuous manufacturing, where now it's possible to achieve a low process variable processes, and while still maintaining your basic traditional manufacturing principles. So, today's product may as well down the road become a legacy product or to be put under a legacy bucket, right? So my assumption is that this data-driven legacy product assessment is here to stay, and so that we could avoid manufacturing issues and associated supply risks in the future.
Excellent. And AJ, one last question. As an author for the IVT Network, what can our JVT readers expect to see from you next?
Well, for the last almost 2 years now, right? We've been readjusting with our work environment because of the pandemic restrictions. But it's been a great time for our industry as a whole. There's been a lot of activities as far as commissioning new facilities that are happening locally as well as across the world. And we're trying to adopt the virtual way of commissioning and qualification in certain areas. What I feel is there's a lot of areas for harmonization and standardization in that segment. And that's something that I'm working on. So that's something they could expect in the future. And I'm looking forward for contributing to relevant topics, particularly applicable topics, where you can take it and apply in your site or facility, as a validation professional.
Excellent. Well, we'll all be on the lookout for that, AJ. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the IVT Network and our advisory board, I just want to say once again, congratulations to you and the team for winning this year's JVT Author of the Year Award. I know that you guys worked hard on this, and it's always nice to get a little recognition. So congratulations.
Thanks again for the great recognition.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you so much.
Our next award is for author or authors of the year for the Journal of GXP Compliance. And the next slide shows the nominees, and again, very diverse content. And if you scroll down to the bottom of that slide, you'll see we have a team of 4 authors, Richard Wedlich, Kurt Moyer, Z. Miller, and Uliana Madyugacheva. And their paper had to do, or their series of 4 papers addressed good laboratory practices and safety in the lab. Now, next up is the conversation with Stacey and one of the authors.
The Author of the Year Award for the Journal of GXP Compliance is being awarded for a 4-part series of articles on laboratory safety in GXP environments. and it was conceived by the submitting author and included collaboration with a different co-author for each of the successive articles. Congratulations to Richard C. Wedlich, who is joined today by co-author and colleague Kurt Moyer.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you with us, Richard. And I know that Kurt is here to congratulate you on this series of articles. Before we hop in, do you want to briefly mention who your co-authors were on these four very relevant and very different articles?
Yes, as you know, Dr. Moyer was a member of the team, and Uliana Matajicheva, who's one of our principal investigators, is another member, and Zamilia Miller, who provided quite a bit of input into our earlier safety program.
Excellent. Well, Richard, congratulations to you and to all of the team for really an amazing series of articles that were well received from the GXP audience. I mean, you guys by far, hands down, had an overwhelming number of votes here in our awards voting, and here we are. So,
well, I and my entire team are greatly honored to receive this award. Our gratitude and thanks go out to the entire IVT community. I offer special thanks to Dr. Paul Pluta. Dr. Pluta has been an inspiration to me for many years now, and a constant source of encouragement. And finally, I would like to encourage young scientists and engineers to write. Take up a subject that interests you and write an article and submit it for peer review. This is a really good way to learn.
thank you for that little plug and for mentioning Dr. Pluta, as he has been an inspiration to all of us at one time or another, Richard, for sure. I have just a couple of questions for you today.
Sure.
I'm thinking about lab safety. You know, it's such an important topic and obviously the focus of each of your articles. And one of the threads that I noticed that ran through all four articles was the idea that safety needs to be part of the culture from the top down. Was this an important forethought for you in the writing of this series?
Well, the safety culture is established from the top down. I like to say that that diamond is formed from coal by pressure from above. I don't know if geologically that's correct, but it seems like a good metaphor. I am a firm believer in leadership, and to me, this is the cornerstone to understanding and establishing strategies for maintaining a safe laboratory operation. Every organization has a safety culture, whether it's a good one or not, and we've all worked for both types. The culture is the sum total of many, many parts and ultimately reflects the top management's level of understanding and commitment. So yes, I had something like an ideal safety culture in mind as I approached the writing of these articles. We wanted to put some ideas out there, and the reader, of course, decides, what to take and what to leave behind.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there were so many facets of safety covered over the series here, as I mentioned. And of course, there's a lot to think about for the readers. And you're 100% right. People will pick and choose those pieces that apply to them and their organizations. But who do you feel is ultimately responsible for the ongoing safety efforts of the organization?
Well, I think we all know that responsibility without authority does not work. We've all probably been given responsibilities and then absolutely no authority in which to carry them out. So I wouldn't stop there, though. I would say that to exert authority requires a position within the organization from which you can see really what is going on. I would say that you must also have access to resources that you can use to affect positive change. So with these things in mind, I feel ultimately it is the person at the top of the chart who is responsible. They will wisely delegate responsibility, but as Truman used to say, the buck stops with them. they can and should make the safety culture that they need in their organization.
I love that. I mean, I agree that your top leaders need to lead by example, but also make it possible for their teams to achieve safety, right? So they need to make the right tools available and set the right tone and expectations so that they can follow along. So I love that explanation there. And on behalf of the IVT team, and of course, our editorial advisory board, I just want to say congratulations to you again on this recognition. It's so great to have had this series of articles available for our readers and then to see them respond in the positive way that they did.
Yay. Yay for our side.
Excellent. Kurt, anything to add?
Just again, thank you very much for the award and the recognition to Richard's hard work on these publications.
I agreed. So we'll all say thank you to you, Richard. Officially 2 years old and with more than 20,000 downloads and listens, the IVT Network's podcast, Voices in Validation, is the industry's fastest growing validation-focused podcast. The podcast has continued to grow in listeners and popularity each month, averaging 2,500 downloads. The 2021 Voices in Validation Podcast of the Year Award was instituted last year and something we are happy to bring back for 2021 as we recognize Ajaz Hussain, Alton Johnson, and Steve Thompson for amazing work on that podcast, as well as a corresponding paper in one of our journals. So here to accept the award and to chat with us for a few minutes today is Steve Thompson. Steve, so great to have you with us.
Good to be here, and thank you. It's an honor to be back again on your podcast. 20,000, wow, that's right? Pretty good.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
And on behalf of Doctors Ajaz Hussain and Alton Johnson, they said that I could accept the award. Obviously, they were integral in all of this, and we're all very honored. And what a great privilege it is to get this and be a part of it. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. And, it's a topic that's of great interest to our audience here at IVT Network. And I know it's something that you work in daily. So I just have a couple of follow-on questions for you. Across life sciences, we see companies at varying stages in adoption of digital technologies. But COVID certainly accelerated this process for all by, I see estimates of 3 to 4 years. How do you think this has impacted the digitization efforts across facilities?
The impact is significant. So paperless is now a given for several reasons. One of which is it allows us to work remote and even manage more effectively as compared to paper, faxing, printing, shipping it around. That is not effective. That's not efficient. And we realize that. And so with paperless validation, not only is it more efficient, but you can also do things like witness validation execution, verify. You could even, as we did in the talked about in the podcast, you could even operate manufacturing processes remotely, including operate manufacturing remotely, including validation processes. So with the ability to capture objective evidence live, coupled with all of that, the remote aspect of our work brought about by COVID has really shown us that paperless is the way to go. And beyond the practical need, COVID-19 has fundamentally changed our view of life science manufacturing. And now it's even a topic, and it's a topic on the national security portfolio. It has supercharged the push to Industry 4.0 in emerging legislation, federal budgets, and even plans for regulatory resiliency. So paperless is the first step, and progress to Industry 4.0 was founded upon validation lifecycle management and continuous improvement. So at Valgenesis, what we're doing, and you know that from the podcast, is we're serving customers industry-wide to strengthen that foundation and help life sciences and organizations in general to progress to Industry 4.0. So the impact is significant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it only took a global pandemic to get us here.
It takes what it takes, I guess they say.
Yeah, no, but it's, I have seen it. Now that we know, it's like no more, do more. So I think the industry is now poised to finally take the next steps because they've seen it in action. They've seen how it can work, and that's encouragement for a lot of folks.
Right.
One additional question. The FDA's Quality Management Maturity Pilot Program was launched earlier this year. We actually did a separate podcast episode on that. As this rolls out to a broader audience, what impact can you imagine for both inspection resources as well as the audit readiness efforts of our pharma organizations?
So speaking on our niche, if you will, validation, I'll just speak to that aspect of it. So maturity related to validation means that you're validated internally, right? So rather than depending upon external audits to identify gaps and your internal validation practices, it's better to have that under control internally. In other words, don't rely upon external forces to tell you have a problem. A mature organization identifies, fixes, continual improvement, like we just mentioned before. So that is maturity. And companies that have adopted validation lifecycle management, they should gain a competitive advantage in achieving predictability of the regulatory audits and also being assured that their systems contribute to on-time marketing, authorizations of new products, and also reduce the resources that are required, that are allotted to audit readiness. So yeah, having the processes internally mature will help you not rely and also reduce the resources so that you're always in a state of audit inspection readiness.
Sure, and of course that leads to efficiencies, right? Because we become more efficient, and then the patient benefits from that because there's no slowdowns, there's no issues in getting the drug where it needs to be, which is in the hands of the patient. So absolutely. Excellent. Well, Steve, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with me today. On behalf of the IVT Network team, as well as our editorial advisory board, I want to once again say congratulations to you and to Drs. Hussain and Johnson. It's such a pleasure to work with you, and I was very excited to see you guys recognized for that great work.
I think we were more excited. Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Thank you. Validation Week serves as a platform for validation and compliance professionals to engage on topics and strategies for achieving regulatory compliance, ensuring quality across lifecycle, and leveraging advanced tools and technologies. Last year's event provided 30 in-depth sessions in a virtual format, and our Speaker of the Year provided expertise in sessions focused on integration of QBD lifecycle into process validation, qualification, and quality systems. Our winner this year is Paul Pluta. Paul, let me be the first to congratulate you on this recognition.
Thank you, Stacey.
Absolutely. I love that we get to work together, and now I finally get to recognize you.
Well, thank you so much. So thank you IVT for the award. Thank you for all the readers and attendees who attended and voted for me. And most important, thank you for the people who contributed to my talks. My talks are very practical in their orientation, and I depend on my attendees to give me stories, to give me case studies, to give me their experiences and other feedback. And they do an excellent job, and they give me good content, and their content is, I think, what makes my talks good and acceptable. So
and apparently they agree with you, Paul, because you had an overwhelming number of votes, and here we are. I really love it. So, Paul, I'm interested in getting your perspective on this event. You've been a speaker at Validation Week for more than a decade. How has the meeting, including the topics and participants, changed over the years?
Changes, lots of changes. Changes, I would say finding things that have stayed the same is going to be more difficult than finding changes. So changes are happening all the time, they're evolving, and they're constant. I like to divide things into the technical side of changes and the personal side of changes, personnel side of changes. So from a technical standpoint, so number one, validation. Validation has changed tremendously between the 70s when it started and the first guidance in 1987, and then the second guidance in 2011. Now, the next thing would be product changes. Go back 10, 15, 20 years, we had small molecule products, we had medical devices, and we had the start of combination device and drug products. What we have now is overwhelming biotech products, and biotech products are way more complicated. The names are so complicated you can't hardly even pronounce them to read what the names are.
It's true.
So we have biotech products. In the old days, we had generics. Now we have biosimilars. We had the Orange Book from FDA. Now we have the Purple Book for biotech. So biotech has certainly been a dominant change in past, let's just say 5 years. So many new products, so many new names. Now, so we have validation, we have products. Let's talk processes. So in the old days, you had big companies, and you could recognize the names of the companies and the people who attend the IVT meetings from their companies. Now, not only do you have processes that change and more complicated, like continuous manufacturing and so forth, but you have a supply chain that is very complicated. So the entire manufacturing process has changed. So we have a supply chain that could start in India or China and go to Germany, and then maybe go to Ireland, and then ultimately get to the States for final packaging and commercial distribution. So that's a big, big change. And of course, the way we do things is reflective of those changes. So that's validation. We have drugs. We have processes. The next thing would be risk. Everything is risk. We have to do risk analysis for everything we do. Now, risk is about 10 years old, maybe 12 years old. And we had a review of risk in the journals a couple of years ago. And the main question was, are we better off now after 10 years of risk management and knowledge management and quality risk management than we were 10 years ago? And, we have revisions going on in ICHQ9. So they're updating the risk guidance, and problems have been identified. And we've talked about that a lot in the journals as well. So that's another big change. Risk is everything. Everything you have to do, every function, every validation, every change management needs a risk assessment.
Yes, we need to understand where the risk is so that we can minimize it, right?
Right, and prioritize the work. So we do more work when there's greater risk.
Absolutely, Paul. And you're so right. I mean, it is an evolving industry. We see changes happening, whether it's regulatory guidances, technologies that are being employed, or just the processes and procedures that we've used. And we need to, and we do, showcase those in our events and in our papers. So I thank you for that overview. And on behalf of the IVT Network team, and of course your colleagues on the Editorial Advisory Board, I want to once again say congratulations for being this year's recipient of the Speaker of the Year for Validation Week.
Thank you. And IVT has great speakers, and I'm honored and humbled to be considered part of that group. So thank you again.
The Computer Systems Validation and Software Assurance Week event is an annual opportunity for attendees, solutions providers, and regulators to come together and discuss the technologies, best practices, and evolving regulatory landscapes for IT, software engineers, and validation professionals across life sciences. This year, our Speaker of the Year helped us focus in on the digital transformation efforts so important to our 2021 audience. So congratulations to Ron Schardong for winning the CSV Award.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Ron, as we slowly make our way toward a more digital focus across industry, how do you see the quality management systems maturing, and what impact will that have on current manufacturing practices?
The way I see it is like with the increasing the digital focus across the industry, quality management systems continue to move away from paper solutions and more into the digital space. And I see that many of the business process applications that we use in support of a quality system they're becoming more available as a software as a service or a SaaS solution. And I think that there will be less customization and more configuration of these solutions to keep the cost down, and also to be able to move into something else in the future. Again, if there is a better option in the future to move and essentially bring your data with you. So, and that's usually a challenge when you have a lot of things that are very customized. So I think for startups and smaller companies, this is more cost effective. And there are many ways to be compliant. Just again, because you have something that is different doesn't mean that it's not compliant. So QMSs will start to look alike more from one company to the next. So I think the second part of your question is like, so what is the impact on current manufacturing practices? I see the possibility for more integration between manufacturing data and the QMS through automation of manufacturing processes and the use of MES and LIMS systems. And with that creating the possibility for quickly identifying issues, reducing work or waste, also to making process adjustments faster, and also faster product release. So again, integrating data from lab and batch review and C resolutions and reconciliation of products. So I do see, again, benefits for industry by, again, the wave of change that is coming.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're moving to a much more efficient and agile model, from where we were even just a few years ago. So,
True.
Ron, thinking ahead to CSV 2022 and 2022 in general, what do you think are some of the key trends in either topics or delivery that we'll see?
So I see more AI and machine learning being used and becoming more commonplace, not just in business process applications, but also in digital health and manufacturing. So like, for example, analyzing images to assist in diagnosing a disease or to do like product inspection. It's becoming more commonplace. And because of the modeling that is involved, we need different strategies to validate AI and machine learning so that we don't stifle creativity by applying conventional CSV practices. Another area is robotic process automation is also becoming more commonplace in a fairly inexpensive form of automation for repetitive steps that are performed by human users. And these can be also scaled up and down to keep up with the demand. So it's another trend that, again, we see happening. And also the use of digital twins to simulate products or patients or manufacturing processes is becoming more prominent.
Excellent. Well, that definitely gives us an idea of some things to look out for in the coming year. Well, Ron, on behalf of the IVT Network team and, of course, the Editorial Advisory Board, I want to again extend our congratulations to you and thank you for being a very valued speaker at this event.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Now on to the 2021 IVT Speaker of the Year Award for Compounding Pharmacy Compliance. The annual Compounding Pharmacy Compliance event assembles a diverse mix of experts from compounding facilities, regulatory agencies, analytical labs, and both community and private pharmacy in an effort to better understand critical updates on the evolving regulatory landscape, break down new guidelines, share best practices for improved quality operations, and strategize on how to advance the industry within and beyond the pharmacy. Our Speaker of the Year award goes to Dr. Ross Caputo for captivating presentations on preparing for regulatory inspections and building the mindset of quality operations.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm humbled by the honor. It is an area that people are interested in, that many, many people are working in and discuss and talk about, and to be recognized by your group, I truly appreciate it, and I say thank you.
Absolutely. Well, it's our pleasure, and so very well deserved, of course. Dr. Caputo, your presentations range from nuts and bolts industry best practices to shaping the mindsets across organizations. What do you think is in store for effective shifts to corporate culture, things like quality culture or risk culture in the compounding space as we move forward?
Well, that's the real question, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think what happens in these areas that we have to look at what forms a culture and why. And the culture in compounding or in drugs in general is you're supposed to consider the patient first. But let's be real. We all deal with risk assessments, patient, business, and employees. Patient risk should never be compromised. The fact is all patients are different. And sometimes what we think works for one doesn't work for another is something we have to deal with. And that the pharmacist consulting role does that. And they try to look at each patient as an individual in a personalized medicine approach. But what we can always make sure is that the drug we're delivering is always right. It's always exactly what we're saying it is. And that takes effort and that takes time. And then that goes into that business risk. You've not met a businessman who is a pharmacist, a doctor, a lawyer, or anybody who needs to know that he has a family to take care of himself, that he has to eat. You can never apologize for making a profit. You can never apologize for a value treatment. Never. But what you need to be careful of is understanding where business risk and worrying too much about perhaps my profit, my well-being in my business, that it puts at risk a patient. And I don't believe anyone does that on purpose. I don't believe anyone does that on purpose. Now, I know that we all think about those horrendous situations that have shaped our industry. We all know what they are.
Right.
And those individuals clearly did put business profitability in front of the patient. But that is not our industry. It's not our industry at all. We can't get caught up that it might be. One of the biggest things, though, I worry about today, or I don't worry about, I think about it, is USP 800. What a big deal, right?
Right.
And someone says, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and the states aren't going to go for it. It's too expensive. I can't do that. I get confused. I get confused because that's all about risk for your employees, for your technicians. It's not just about cross-chemical contamination for a patient. It's about the young woman, like my daughters, who are in childbearing years, working with heavy concentrations of hormones. They need to protect themselves. I'm not sure that risk has gotten mixed up in business risk as opposed to it's in your employee's risk. It's in your employee's best interest long term. Balancing those three things, it's all about balance. I have to make sure I get drugs to my patient. I have to be able to assure that I can do that cost effectively. I have to assure that my employees are safe in doing it. And I have to get it to them as quickly as possible, as safely as possible, and as simply as possible. The more simple we keep it, the more efficient it is, the more activity that works through there. And shifting the mind shift, I think the people who actually make the decisions, whether it's an owner who's an absentee owner who has a PIC working for them, or the PIC themselves that are doing that, they need to put all of these in a balance. And that balance is always going to be towards safety, and risk means patient safety, employee safety. And if you don't keep your business safe, you're not doing anybody any good. I always think back to the airplane. Put your mask on first, save yourself before you help everyone around you. So that's where I look at that culture shift. And by the way, everyone says it has to come from the top. The real answer is it comes from within. It comes from within. Yes, it's at the top, but it's the bottom, it's the middle, it's the edges, it's everywhere. Everybody's got to come on board. I am anti-button. You never see Ross wearing a button about anything. Do not tell me what I need to think. Tell me why I should believe something. Tell me why I should need something else. Now you're going to win me. Okay? But that's where I come from. So I sort of long-winded, but that's how I see it. Culture change are always within. Always, always, always.
Yeah, absolutely within. And part of the challenge is getting everyone to buy in and share your vision, right? But when you're offering them the opportunity to have that work-life balance, to have the right balance between profit and safety, patient advocacy, then it's a lot easier to get everybody to come along on that mission, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's no way you can force knuckleheads like myself to do anything. You have to tell me why. You have to tell
I agree. I think most people are that way.
I do too.
One additional question for you today. With so many regulatory changes, I know you mentioned USP 800, but there's been a lot of different regulatory changes, and there's still some draft USP guidances out there for review. So understanding that, coupled with the overwhelming demands placed on pharmacists today, what topics do you see as being critical to address in 2022 to meet the continued needs of compounding pharmacists and compounding facilities?
That's more difficult than the first question. I will tell you that I think that the mind shift, not mindset, but mind shift that is going on in our industry continues to say that compounding pharmacies are not what they were 10 years ago, and they're not going back. You can hold your breath till you turn blue. You can stammer up and down and say, I don't want to do it, but it's not happening.
Right.
It's changed. So we need to become, in the compounding pharmacy, we need to become better businessmen. We need to become not better pharmacists. We know how to be a pharmacist. A technician knows how to be a technician, all right? That's not what we're talking about. All these regulatory guidelines, constraints, whatever words you want to use, the speed limit in a school zone is 20 miles an hour. This is not a voting right. This is what it is, okay? So we choose to be in this business. We are not making paper clips. Nothing against paper clips. I keep them. I use them, right? But we don't. And there are rules to go with it. And these rules, frankly, 95% of them are based in scientific fact. There's always 5% fluff that you're not quite sure where that bill came from, how that got attached onto it. We don't know, right? But they make sense. And it's at extreme scrutiny to frankly, an industry that's not been scrutinized. And so when someone is saying, because our industry has changed, because this compliance has changed, I've done that for 20 years, that's not a defense, okay? That's an oversight.
Right.
And I think that actually, on many people that I talk to, they said, geez, you mean you tell me I've been doing it wrong for all these years? Now, I wouldn't tell my kids they did it wrong. I'd say they did it incomplete. It wasn't quite done. But I don't think that 20 years ago, you had compounding pharmacies trying to make batch sizes of 1,000. Their industry has changed. Embrace it. Great. God love you. It's wonderful. And so the regulatory guidance that comes back, when they overreach, by God, push back. And I mean that. Push back. But when the science makes sense, when you identify what it is that you're truly doing, again, my question number one, right, was patient risk, business risk, and employee risk. Doing it right and correctly, we need to become more efficient. We need to look at these rules that are rules. Guidance documents and rules sometimes are like this. And because some of our boards of pharmacies are different than the federal, that also becomes an issue. But we all know that doing the right thing is always a defense, but it's not a reason to do it. Okay? And if the right thing is I got to get it to my patient right now, and by God, I'm going to do this, well, if that's a one-off, no one's going to complain. But if you're doing that as your business practice, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. Office use, no. Patient-specific scripts, period. There's still that, it still goes on today. There's no defense for that. So to get the credibility within what we're doing, our businesses in this growth dynamic market called compounding pharmacy, we call it personalized medicine. You need to do it efficiently, you need to do it efficaciously, and you need to do your homework and know what you're doing. It's critical. It is critical in our industry. It's critical for our society. It's critical for people to make sure they can get what they need. And that's what compounding pharmacies do. And I think it's very important. I think they need to become better businessmen. I think that, but the better businessman actually, in my mind, doesn't mean accounting. That's not what it means.
Right.
It means knowing your risk points. Know where the issues are that you come down with it. And I always use, and I used it in my last lecture, about don't buy stuff from Piggly Wiggly. Don't do that, okay? And because it's wrong. It was never right, okay? And so I would just say you have got to become efficient. You've got to become focused. You have to become focused on what you're doing. And as you know, we're a testing lab. I am shocked to find out where people don't ask me, what should I test? They ask me, what's the least I have to test by the law? Those are two different statements, because pharmacy A versus pharmacy B could be apples and oranges.
Right.
Apples and oranges. Hospitals make stuff immediately, take it to the floor and use it most of the time. Not much testing going on there of any products, but they probably want to test their hoods, their environment, their stuff. Learn your business, learn your stuff. So we live in a dynamic time. We need to be proactive, not reactive. For someone to go in and do all this work because they have no data to support what they did in the first place is poor business.
Absolutely.
Simply poor business. Be proactive. Think about it. That's what you need. Good.
Thank you. Thank you for your insights and for giving us something to look forward to in 2022. We know we'll see our teams starting to become better at the business of compounding and not just the activities of compounding.
Absolutely. That's going to be an excellent year. And again, thank you so very much for the honor. I am truly humbled. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And congratulations from the IVT Network team, as well as our advisory board. We are excited to have you as a recipient of our award this year, Dr. Caputo.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before we go on with awards, I want to take a minute for a brief commercial message. It's not really a commercial, it's an invitation. And it's an invitation for you viewing these things to participate in our various methods of communication in IVT. Now we have the journals, the written things, which are peer reviewed. We have blogs, we have a podcast, and all these things are integrated to provide information. Now we need content, so we depend on you to give us content, but it's a two-way street, and you participating in our journals and in our other means of communication, it's good for you as well. And what this does is establish some expertise for you, and it's global expertise. You know, I tell people that I'm going to make them world famous, and that's not a grandiose exaggeration. That's reality. We have thousands and thousands of views for our journals. Also, I ask people about their resumes, and usually people say, I need to update it, I need to build it a little bit. Well, writing papers, presenting at meetings, contributing to blogs, doing podcasts, those are resume entries. So you should think of that as building your own credibility and your own credentials and your own skills. And also I hear, I really don't know enough, I'm afraid. Well, I can assure you that we have an excellent editorial advisory board who are helpful people, and they want publications, they want to help you, and they will help you to make a good document for publication. And I think in more than 10 years of being editor, I'm up to 2 complaints now in 10 years on literally 1,000 publications where people weren't happy with what finally was published. So anyway, please join us. Please contribute, and the time and effort will be worth it to you personally. All right, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Paul, it's a pleasure to work with you day in and day out, but I really have to say, I love this time of year when we get to present the Chapman Award to one deserving individual. So can you give us a history and background on the Chapman Award?
I sure will. Okay, the Chapman Award, named for Ken Chapman. Ken was a Pfizer employee, around 40 plus year Pfizer employee who worked closely with FDA on a lot of the early validation topics. He worked on sterile products, on water systems, on sterilizer validation, and his main accomplishments had to do with quality systems. And what he figured out back many years ago is sort of the backbone for what FDA uses to do quality systems audits. So his legacy lives on in all of the audits that we undergo as part of industry. Now, when he died in 2006, we established the Chapman Award to continue his memory. And the next slide shows you the past recipients of the Chapman Award. And you'll see from names, this is a list of superstars in validation and compliance. And we have people from academia, we have regulatory people, FDA, as well as Europe. We have industry people, we have consultants people, but it's an honored list of people who have, each one of them contributed significantly to validation. Now, let me tell you a bit about our recipient this year, and I'll bring you some highlights from her nomination. Our recipient is Valarie King-Bailey of Onshore Technology Group, and her nomination, I know Valarie for many years, and I've heard her speak many times, and I'm confident of her great accomplishments in computer system validation. And no one will argue about the competency of her in validation, but I didn't know some other things about her that were on her nomination. So aside from her technical expertise and business expertise, and she gets awards for her business, she's now listed among the Inc. Fortune 500, 5,000 companies. She also is very involved in academic engineering, and she works with the University of Wisconsin, her alma mater, and part of different programs in the University of Wisconsin. She also works with DePaul University, and she was a founding member of a Women in Entrepreneurship Council. And so that's her academic side of it. And then finally, her community service is outstanding. She established a foundation with her company, and she works with her church. She gives scholarships, laptops, things like that. She's a mentor to students in the underserved communities. So not only has Valarie affected our validation lives, but she has affected lives in general in her community. So congratulations, Valarie. And next up is a conversation of Stacey and Valarie.
Finally, we arrive at the most prestigious award delivered annually by IVT. The Chapman Award embodies the best of the industry, highlighting guiding principles in validation and quality assurance. Our recipient this year is a true industry leader. Valarie King-Bailey has been leading teams, inspiring young women in STEM, advocating for women and minorities in business, and mentoring emerging leaders and entrepreneurs for the past 30 years. Valarie currently serves on the IVT Editorial Advisory Board and has been a past speaker of the year for her participation in our annual conferences.
She has achieved accolades and awards too many to name here, and was recently recognized by Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing companies in the US. So this award is very timely and very well deserved. So congratulations to you, Valarie, and your team at Onshore Technology Group.
Thank you so much. We are delighted, and I am deeply honored to receive this prestigious award.
I am so thrilled to be here with you today and have this conversation. And Valarie, I just had a couple of questions for you. And this is such a deserved recognition. But when you think back on your long career in life science, what do you think the driving force in industry was that kept you engaged and poised to always give back?
That's an excellent question. When I grew up as a little girl, as part of a minority community, I looked around me and I saw a bigger world. I always wanted to be a part of that world, and I always wanted to contribute. I found my niche when I got into software validation. And when I was younger, I remember professionals coming to our school and talking to us about various careers in medicine, technology, mathematics, and the sciences. And I found those people fascinating. When I looked at my career, and I look at my career over the last 35 plus years, my goodness, I think about that little girl sitting in the classroom and listening and dreaming of a better future for herself and a better future for the world in which she could contribute. What has driven me is I wanted to give back. I wanted to give back to those underprivileged kids who were sitting in the same classroom that I was sitting in. I wanted them to see somebody that looked like them doing something like what I'm doing. From the very moment that I graduated with my engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I wanted kids to be able to see that there's a better way out there. Science, technology, engineering, and math are the jobs that are sustainable going into the future. I wanted these kids to understand that. So I mentor kids. One of the things that we do, I established the Onshore Technology Group Foundation. Every year through my church, I give technology away to those kids who excel excellently in science, careers, technology, engineering, and math. We give away iPads, laptops, any type of technology that would help them excel. This year, because of the pandemic, it was really interesting because I work with inner city kids in church, and it was funny. Many of them didn't even have a laptop as the whole world socially distanced. They didn't even have a laptop or a tablet or anything to communicate. Many of them couldn't get on the internet. We're proud to say that we donated 15 laptops to kids who were excelling. One kid is going to the University of Illinois, and he said without that laptop, he would not have been able to go to school. He would not have been able to participate. And even some of the kids in younger grades, like sixth grade, seventh grade, they got laptops too. I'm a giver. I always wanted to give back, and that has always been at the forefront of what I'm doing. And I constantly mentor young men and women in the STEM profession. I call myself a fierce STEM advocate.
I love it. And you're creating so many opportunities for these students that they just wouldn't have otherwise. And that gives them that little boost that hopefully, will get them into a career like yours, a successful career where they're able to in turn give back. So what an amazing thing. And Valarie, we were chatting just before we had this conversation about all of that, everything that's gone on for you guys this past year. And you've really had a banner year with so many achievements and recognitions, all rightly deserved, all a testament to your hard work and your leadership excellence. And what advice do you have for some of our audience who are maybe just starting out in their career or earlier on in their career and really looking to make some impactful next steps?
That's an excellent question. I would say look at what happened during this pandemic. And I would speak to the women in the group. Women were displaced in this pandemic in a lot of different ways. You know, I was reading the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago, and they were talking about how many women actually had to drop out of the workforce because of the fact that they didn't have health care, and some of them had kids, childcare, and that kind of thing. I would ask you to look strongly not only at jobs, but look at entrepreneurship as a means of empowerment. When I started Onshore Technology Group, one of the things that was happening is the offshoring of jobs from America's shores. And that's kind of where the name onshore came from. It's keeping technology jobs here on America's shores. I would ask people to look at the STEM professions. Look at starting your own company. The playing field is much more leveled for women and for men than it was 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, when women couldn't get loans and things like that. I would ask people to look at their own creative power and look in themselves, because doing what I'm doing in the middle of a pandemic and being able to make the Inc. 5000 in the middle of a pandemic was nothing that I ever foresaw coming. But you need to look at how this pandemic has changed the economy. Why is onshore growing so fast? Because many people are starting to recognize that the old paper-based way that we used to do validation just simply doesn't work. And it's not only validation, it's manual supply chain processes, manual drug delivery processes, and drug design processes. Everyone is automating. Artificial intelligence is kind of taking over, machine learning. The technology revolution is now at its peak, but it's causing companies like mine to be resilient. And the buzzword of today is resilient. How resilient are you? And I would, if I were you, and the advice that I would ask myself, I would ask myself, how do I pick myself up? This is what Americans do. How do I pick myself up in the middle of this pandemic? And how do I make lemonade out of lemons? And that's basically what we all had to do globally, not just in America, but across the globe. We all had to be resilient. I would tell people, be the best at what you do. When I serve my customers every day, I not only look to deliver a service to them, I want them, when they engage with onshore, to understand that they get the best service ever. That's the way you become resilient. Be the best at what you do. Look at your skill set. Look at what you can do, and look at how that is going to shape your future. You are the master of your own destiny, and I've always believed that about myself. I didn't want anybody to hand me anything. I didn't want anybody to give me anything. I wanted to earn it. And that's what I did to get to where I am today. I could have never dreamed of what is happening to onshore right now, never dreamed of getting an honor such as this, but it has been unbelievable during this pandemic. And what I've done is I've changed the way we've done business in the middle of this pandemic to take our company to different heights. You look, each one of you, at what you can do and what you're best at and what you have a passion for, and go for it. That's what I would recommend.
I love that, Valarie. And we definitely saw during this whole global pandemic, if nothing else, that we can be resilient and we can change, right? We've had to make this shift to a more digital world, and we've done it, and we've done it well. And I think that's a testament to people like you leading the way. So on behalf of the IVT Network and the Editorial Advisory Board, I want to once again offer you congratulations.
Thank you very much. I am so grateful and deeply honored for this wonderful, wonderful recognition. Thank you very much.
Certainly our pleasure, Val.
All right.
As you listen to our recipients speak, I hope you were able to hear the passion in their voices and the dedication in their words. Each of these deserving award recipients truly exemplifies the best of industry and represents what IVT Network has to offer. We invite you to be a part of the IVT Network community. And again, we offer sincere congratulations to all of our recipients and thank each of them for their collaborative spirit and their contributions to the IVT and the industry. Cheers.